Welcome to the Point Cybersecurity Podcast. Each week, join Petko Stoyanov and Rachel Lyon to explore the latest in global cybersecurity news, trending topics, and industry transformation initiatives impacting governments, enterprises, and our way of life. Now, let's get to the point. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of To The Point Podcast. I'm Rachel Lyon, here with my co-host, Petko Stoyanov. Petko, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Rachel. I'm excited for today's guest. We're going to talk about something that I think impacts all of us, but we don't want to admit it sometimes, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of, living life in a bubble sometimes is not a good thing. So let's jump right to it. Let's welcome to the podcast Jennifer Cook. She is Senior Director of Marketing at the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, where to start? I guess let's start at the top, though, because for some people, they may not know the great work that the National Cybersecurity Alliance does, particularly, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which I think is actually a global initiative, correct? So you've got a lot of partners. Tell us how that is, because I'm sure it's been blowing up, particularly in the last 5 years or whatever, since we've been seeing much more focus on cybersecurity at the presidential level, right, at the administration level.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the National Cybersecurity Alliance is a nonprofit organization, and it's our mission to make sure everybody has access to free, easy to understand resources about cybersecurity and about staying safe online. So we've actually been around for over 20 years at this point, always focus on that mission of, cybersecurity awareness and education, but we have absolutely seen interest in it explode over just the past even 2 or 3 years. So we co-lead Cybersecurity Awareness Month every year with CISA. We work with a lot of partners around the world. We call them our champions. They sign up to receive our resources and promote those resources to their employees and their communities. And we actually, just this past October and during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we had almost a 100% increase in the number of registered partners. So these people signing up to receive and distribute our information. They came from organizations representing over 120 different countries. That is a huge increase in the amount of interest and partnerships we've seen compared to the rest of the campaign. So it was really exciting to see different partners, different people from such a variety of organizations as well: schools, higher education, government organizations, nonprofits, so many different industries just across the board getting involved and
getting interested in cybersecurity. I love schools too, right? It's, we've talked about this on the podcast, and, Petko has younger children too, just the access to technology at these really young ages, and just trying to be aware of how you live your life online, particularly when that's all you've known. It's and that kind of awareness earlier, and particularly as well as for cyber careers, right? So I think that's really exciting, the great work that you guys are doing there. So can we, so this time of year, there's a lot of opportunities for scams. I'm going to jump right into it, Petko. Now, this is what makes it so interesting. I think for this world that we live in cyber or as an industry, there's always new ways in, and I think romance scams, where Valentine's Day is upon us, is a nice jumping off point for a lot of the things that we're seeing that really do impact consumers. And you guys recently wrote a blog post I saw on your website just about this topic and just how prevalent it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just came out with some new information about romance and online dating scams. We also have a toolkit available for anyone who wants to share resources, again, in their organizations. But so romance scams, it happens year round, but we do take this opportunity around Valentine's Day to talk about it, especially. Maybe people are, going onto their dating apps or, websites looking for love a little bit more than they did the rest of the year. So it's just a good opportunity to talk about how prevalent these scams can be and, what to look out for, what to do if you spot a scam or if you find yourself kind of hooked into a romance scam.
I was really surprised. I was looking into this, right? Because you do hear about these things, and it was 1.3 billion in losses due to romance scams last year, according to the FTC. And this is the total of the previous 5 years combined, just last year. And you're seeing that this is, and that's only what's been reported is the other piece of it, and that's kind of staggering, and it's, where do people start? I mean, what are some of the tips that you guys have been kind of sharing with folks, Jennifer? Because it's easy to get caught up, I think, sometimes in differentiating between a genuine, that genuine person, versus not.
Rachel, I got to ask, what's a romance scam? Maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking, I struggle to figure out what it is. Can we define it first?
Okay, let's
because
back up. Yes.
I mean, when I hear 1.3 billion, I'm like, I don't have 1.3 billion. I mean, who's scamming, who for 1.3 billion? So let's define the romance scam, because I'd love to understand what it is, because I think cybersecurity's got so many challenges, and now we're adding, the human side of it sounds like. But I want to make sure, what are some of the stories, Jennifer, that you typically see around, that folks are worried about, and what's the process that this happens?
Sure. So romance scams have been around for quite some time. And I think especially the general public might hear about them and think about maybe the Nigerian prince scam, someone sending you a random email saying, I need help. I'm a prince. Please send me money. And we all know that is a scam. It's very obvious. But, I think there might still be this perception that that's what romance scams look like, that they're very easy to spot, to click delete right away. But romance scams can be so incredibly complex. So, say you're on you might be on a dating website or an app, maybe it's social media, and you're looking for love. You're talking to people throughout the day, trying to make connections. And romance scammers are also on these platforms. They might create a fake profile on this site, and you strike up a conversation with them, and it might not always be obvious that you're talking to a scammer. Sometimes it is, right off the bat. If they're asking for money, you might, ignore the conversation or report the conversation. But romance scammers have gotten so, it has gotten so complex and very, very hard to spot. So these scammers really try to, connect with you in this conversation. They want you to feel that emotional connection to them. They want you to, fall in love with them through these platforms. And then, you might start to spot some of the red flags. Maybe they are, maybe they're saying they're going to come visit you and breaking those promises. Maybe they might, and this is, I think, the biggest and most common red flag is if they start asking for money, especially something that's for something urgent, maybe a medical expense. Maybe it's a plane ticket to come and see you. They want you to act without thinking, to send them money. And so that is, really the biggest red flag of these scams is a request for money, especially if it's one through, they want you to send preloaded gift cards, wire transfer, cryptocurrency. So scammers will strike up a relation with someone on this dating platform, build trust. They might, chat with you for multiple days or weeks or months before they make their first move and ask you for money, or, kind of send you a sad story about why they need help. And that's how, people get roped in.
It sounds like a lot of work, but for depending on what you're getting out of it too. But I wonder about, things like AI though, right? I mean, does that start making these kind of scams easier to execute, meaning less human direct touch of the type and response? Or I think of like a chat GPT, everyone's talking about that. But is this becoming something that's almost automated for them to do when we think about all this introduction of AI? So you could have theoretically 1,000 of these scams happening at the same time. And then you kind of you're waiting to see which one you're like, oh, I'm ready to pounce. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, even before AI, these scammers use a lot of the same, the language and tactics. I think the ones that are really, trying to hook someone in for the long run are trying to, say exactly what that person wants to hear.
Yeah. Because I think too, I mean, a lot of feeding it, right, is, and Petco knows, he's probably sick of me talking about TikTok. I'm kind of obsessed with TikTok right now and what you put on. But if someone were going to go peep on my profiles, they would see
Cats.
I have dogs. I have dogs. You learn, but you'd see I'm an animal person, and I could imagine someone coming on strong with the animal, trying to like, hey, I'll be your friend, that kind of thing. And it's just interesting that everything you put out in the world now, you really have to, be suspicious of everything. I almost feel like innocence is lost.
And, that is one of our top cybersecurity tips for people, especially people on dating apps, is to set your social media profiles to private, because, think about what you're posting on social media and who's going to see it. If you're posting photos of you and your dog, that might be an opportunity for someone to look at your social media profile, reach out on a dating app and say, hey, you have a border collie, so do I. And they make that connection point, and that's how they get in.
I think in the government, they have this concept called operational security, or OPSEC. And it's that exact same thing. Be aware of what you put out, in terms of information. And if someone's using that exact same public information to befriend you or, strike up conversation, be a little bit more aware of it, because it is public. Don't assume it's private.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, I guess a tangential scam that I just learned this term we were talking about, and it's not the actual act of pig butchering, but like legit, who comes up with the pig butchering name scam. But it's basically, and see, this is where it gets me a little nervous, because I'm all about the text messaging. So someone ostensibly, if I'm describing this right, Jennifer, keep me honest, is it, someone basically text messages you purportedly, oh, I'm so sorry, I've got the wrong number, but while I've got you, and that seems to be becoming like another pathway in, like kind of direct route, if you will.
Yeah, and this isn't, exclusive to online dating. This could happen on social media, WhatsApp, texting platforms. Someone might text you and say like, oh, sorry, wrong number. But like you're saying, while I have you, like, they try to start a friendship through text. They're not going to just jump right into the send me money, but I think typically in pig butchering scams, a scammer might reach out, again, making an emotional connection with someone, like really trying to connect with them. The person on the receiving end feels like they know this person, they're friends, they're becoming very close. And then eventually, the scammer might bring up an opportunity for an investment, say like a money-making opportunity. And that's where the scam comes in. They try to, I think they call it pig butchering because they're trying to fatten up the pig, get them involved in this, investment scam, and eventually, send them as much money as possible.
It's funny. I had an interesting one that was very related to this. It was text messaging, random text message from a number I didn't recognize, but they signed it as someone I personally knew, someone I've met before. But they also happened to be on LinkedIn, this person. Mm-hmm. So they pretended to be someone I was connected to on LinkedIn. And at first, they're confirming, hey, this is my new number. Is this Petco? And I'm like, yes, it is, thinking, I know who they are. And then later on, they start saying, hey, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, well, what is it? And then he's like, hey, I'm stuck in this board meeting or something very specific to like this individual. Can you do me a favor? I'm like, okay, what is it? Go to the store and get me a gift card.
What?
And I was like, okay, that's a scam. So I just blocked them immediately. I'm like, you can buy gift cards online. This buddy of mine is not going to ask me to go to the store and get a gift card.
That is hilarious.
It's another interesting point, thinking of LinkedIn. Also being careful who you're connecting with on social media. I think some of us on LinkedIn, we get a request and we just add the person. But think about if you really know that person, or is that person going to use you to make a connection with someone else, saying like, hey, I know Petco, that's going to get me in with Rachel, if we're a connection. So just also being careful, again, who you're sharing your profile with, who you're connecting with on social media.
Good point. A lot of accept. Yeah, don't even think about it.
Yeah, I just thought it was unique that they used the LinkedIn and then somehow got my cell phone number. You know what I mean? And then you pretended to be someone. So they've got some data mining system in the background that's probably looking through names and finding them and then giving the
Apparently
data
there's
out.
apps. I was reading in one of the articles, I think it was like ZDNet, that there's apps in like the Apple and Google app stores. They somehow, I guess, sneak through these pig butchering apps. So isn't that crazy? Yeah. As I guess to facilitate said activities. I just wow. Okay, so this is so much fun. So many scams. Okay, so another big one I want to talk about, and including LinkedIn as well, are job scammers. We're reading all about these layoffs, across these different industries right now. And this was the one I think that really breaks my heart the most. Just for, people who, they need a job, they, need to feed the family, and people take advantage of, folks legitimately looking for a job and finding ways to, ask them to pay for, I don't know, like an application fee or something. I mean, are you guys seeing more and more of this, Jennifer, your side?
We are, yeah, actually, we also just came up with a blog post on this topic too. So, and, similar to romance scams and other types of scams, people are reaching out to those at vulnerable points, whether they're looking for a love or they're looking for a job. It's a very stressful time. You might be communicating with a lot of different people at once, sending in applications or sending personal information through applications. So we are seeing scammy jobs posted. They might ask for an application fee. They might ask you to send personal information,
Right.
say, a social security number or other information to apply for the job or to move forward in the process. So we always tell people with those to make sure you're thinking before sending any, first off, don't send, any personal information over email. Think before you're clicking on links, like especially if someone is sending you an email or a message in a job search platform, always think before you click, do your research on the company that's reaching out to you as well. And if you're applying to a job, they're not going to ask for an application fee. That's a scam.
Some of the stuff too seems so simple. You're like, why would I ever fall for that? But you also think in the moment, to your point, this vulnerability, right? It seems to be this recurring thing. We saw it, particularly with COVID, right? Everyone taking advantage of an epidemic in order to try to scam people. And it's, it's just kind of fascinating. You don't realize, I guess, as humans, just how vulnerable we are, and on the right day, they could be successful.
Yeah. And, we use technology all day and we all let our guards down at some point. And there's also a rush, especially when we're working, responding to emails to get it done, to like cross an email off the list, just to click, like without thinking of it. And scammers are bidding on that. You will just click the link in the email without thinking about who is this coming from, what's the email address. And you see that especially with, just kind of general phishing attempts in your inboxes. It's using a sense of playing on your emotion or using a sense of excitement or urgency. You saw that during COVID, urgent, click here to, get your vaccine or, trying to get you to click on something as quickly as possible.
And it's interesting, like they've moved from email to a lot more text messaging lately. And in this hyper-connected world, you're kind of, you're on the road or you're connected constantly. You're sometimes responding without thinking via text message, or like I'm just thinking through, hey, sign up for this lottery or fill out this form because of this settlement that you might have seen. And next thing you're giving them your social, and then they take that data and mine you elsewhere. And I think we've all been taught, be careful with email scams, but I think we got to keep that in mind with text messaging.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're also, just receiving a lot more through text messages. If you might receive a order confirmation if you're placing an Amazon order, or maybe you expect to receive text messages with like a multi-factor authentication code. I think we're kind of more used to clicking on those messages, and we expect to see those messages, so it's easier for others to slip by.
Absolutely. And I guess that's where I struggle, because they never come from like FedEx. Like I love the FedEx updates in text, right? I mean, I love all the text messages, and it's USPS coming your way, click. But the numbers are never such that you would, you know what I mean? Like when you look at the text message number, you're like, it's a weird number to begin with. So it's like, how do I validate, so this convenience factor, now I'm
right.
all like, I want to click so bad, Jennifer. I want to click it so bad. So what do I do instead?
Slow down, Rachel. You got to slow down and think before you click.
It's very
Exactly.
frustrating. So I mean, so what is next then with the texting then? I mean, is it MFA texting? You know, like just as you would access an application or a website. Now, is it MFA? Like, how do you validate that text? Or you just assume all texts are bad, and I have to go to FedEx and type in the 89 character tracking number and hope I don't get one of the letters wrong. Versus just being able to click the link.
I think there are, some things you can still look out for with a text message. If something is coming through on a thread, you've received other texts from FedEx, I think it's pretty safe to assume that's the same number. But if it's one that's popping up with no other thread, those can be legitimate. Sometimes you get a text from FedEx and it's coming from a very weird number, but that is how FedEx is trying to contact you. I mean, I think it's better to be safe than sorry. For me personally, I try not to click those links. I do go onto FedEx or see if they sent me an email where it might be a little easier to verify, where that URL is going to bring me. So I try to get both the email and the text updates. But yeah, as much as possible, if I can type in the web address on my browser without clicking on anything and look up the information that way, that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm actually impressed with FedEx and UPS's apps, and like the apps work so well. I don't even need the text messaging.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but just how many apps are you going to have on your phone? I'm kind of apped out, Petco. I'm apped out. I mean, I guess you have like scrolling. I have to go to like find apps on my phone. I mean, I love the app experience, but they're all separate and they all require separate authentication and all the other things. And
Rachel, you and I have a little training session on maybe getting rid of some of those cat and dog apps and all those other ones. I'm sure. But you could always say, hey, Siri, hey, Google, open up this app.
That's a really good point.
Or delete some apps maybe.
But you never know. Is app hoarding a thing? Like you never know when you're gonna need that app, and what if you can't download it in the moment and you're not, I don't know. I'm just saying. That's gonna be the next reality series, App Hoarders. Hilarious. Okay, but I do. I know it's hilarious. All right, but I do want to kind of segue though here, because I think in the grand scheme of all of this, Jennifer, the thing that I struggle with the most, and you hear about, there was this wonderful Netflix series called Web of Lies, and they kind of feature, I think it was like 4 or 5 different stories, and we had one of the producers on months ago, and Brian, he was amazing, but it's the legality. How do you prosecute a lot of these things? And one of the stories they featured in this particular series was on sextortion. These high school girls, caught up in the sextortion. And long story short, it turned out to be this fellow that they knew and went to school with. Like he was friends with one of the girls, and she was crying to him about what was going on. And it was almost impossible to prosecute him. I mean, the girls, kind of finally got real creative and figured out a way to track it back to him, and had to work together. But thank goodness they knew each other and were able to work together. Otherwise, he never would have been prosecuted. That seems to be a recurring refrain for cyber scams, Jennifer. I mean, are you guys hearing a lot about that too?
We are, and I think for scams and for romance scams, they often cross, countries,
Right.
across international borders, which makes it very complicated. Whose responsibility is it to prosecute? Is it someone, maybe in the US that's getting scammed, or is the scammer coming from another country? Whose responsibility is it? We always encourage people to report, but it can be very complicated. Our advice, the best thing you can do is report to the platform. The U.S. Secret Service, the FBI are working with victims of scams and romance scams all the time to help them to try to prosecute these cases, but it can be very complicated.
Yeah, because I imagine these things move with such speed too, and they're like, to your point, they're complex. I mean, you're dealing with probably different countries and with different laws. And I imagine it'd be really difficult for even like local law enforcement. I mean, the FBI and they're working with this, but a lot of times you go to local law enforcement to see how they can help. And it's almost like, is there training available to help with like tools and resources for these kind of things?
It's really tough. I think local law enforcement they don't always have
Right.
the resources or the education to know how to help with these scams. It's not like they all have cyber divisions. That's why I think it is important to report to federal agencies so they can help, as well as report to the platform so they can direct you to the right place. We do tell people to report to local law enforcement as well. But that is something that I think as, an industry, we need to work on making sure that local law enforcement has the resources they need to help victims, because they might be the first point of interaction for a victim as well, the first place they go when they, come across the scam.
Yeah, because that would be your first thought, but it's unrealistic to believe that every single, especially some of the smaller towns and counties. It's so complex and moving so quickly. How do you even keep up with it? It's almost like, is there like a national cyber, I don't know, police
Alliance?
force? Yeah. If only there was a National Cybersecurity Alliance. No, I'm kidding. But it seems like a need, but it's almost like curriculum wise, just as soon as you would learn about one thing, then this other thing comes up, and it's like a never ending hamster wheel. And how do you address that?
Yeah, it's tough. And I think that's a great idea for our next project. But it is interesting to think about, when, the average member of the general public is the victim of a cyber attack, thinking about where are they going to go? Where are they going to look for resources? So local law enforcement, there are people that also go to their libraries or community centers to ask for help or maybe bring their laptop in. So I think it's important for the National Cybersecurity Alliance, our organization, and for other organizations to understand where people are going and to make sure that those community leaders are, have the right resources to help members of their community.
Yeah, that's some really great guidance. And the other one that it's kind of top of mind too, as we come into tax season, which is my least favorite time of year. But there's also tax fraud scams. So how do these work, Jennifer? Because this is my biggest concern. I probably shouldn't even say this, but I do all my taxes online. I shouldn't say that out loud. So what do you look out for with those? Because that's coming up here soon, tax deadlines.
Yeah, most people do file their taxes online. It's hard to avoid being online and filing your taxes. So for tax time, of course, watching out for scams that are specific to tax time. The big one is anyone that's emailing or texting or claiming to be from the IRS, saying that you owe them money, threatening you, again, using that sense of urgency, or saying, oh, here's your tax refund, click this link to get it. That's never how the IRS is going to contact you. So that's a big one to look out for. We tell people also just file your taxes early too, to prevent anyone from trying to file taxes in, your name, to prevent identity theft as well. Filing early can help, help prevent that. We do have also resources for reporting to the IRS. You can report tax fraud. You can report phishing scams related to taxes, to reporting to the FTC as well. But the tax time is complicated. It is, again, a very stressful time, and that's why scammers are going to try to take advantage of you during this time. You're very stressed out. You just want to get it done quickly. So it's important to be prepared for tax time. If you work with a tax preparer, do your research, understand how you're going to communicate with your tax preparer. Should you expect emails from them? Do they have a safe way for you to send them documents? Not all of them do. Sometimes they just ask you, like, okay,
Right.
Send me an email with all of your most personal information. I'll take care of it from there. Or understanding, if you're working at a firm, who's going to have access to your data. This is very sensitive information.
Right.
So I think especially, even before you start filing your taxes, getting those questions out of the way, making sure you're working with the right person, knowing how to securely send documents, backing up your documents are really important.
Yeah, Jennifer, it's funny. I mean, I know the IRS has got a great form out there. It's actually not form, but really like a list of checklists for tax professionals. Say, how to communicate, how to do backups, because God forbid your tax professional loses your data, or just deletes it accidentally or whichever. But one thing I found that helps a lot from an identity theft standpoint is on the IRS website. If you have not done this already, make sure you go and actually register and create your account, because what can happen is someone can pretend to be you, register, and then request transcripts electronically without even you knowing it. So you should definitely make sure you're registered on IRS's website, Social Security website, because you wouldn't want someone else pretending to be you and changing the address on the back end without you realizing it.
Yeah, and when you go on and register, they give you an IP pin, an identity protection pin, so that if something happens, you have your pin is only known to you and the IRS. It helps verify your identity when you file your taxes. So then it makes it easier to work with the IRS to recover your identity if something happens.
That's
yeah,
really
so you don't
smart.
just need to submit through TurboTax or whatever software you're using. You could also go in the IRS, register your profile, get the right PIN, and then use that in TurboTax going forward from identity theft.
Nice. Genius, as always, Petco. Great suggestion.
I have too many apps. I think there was an article I read years ago that recommended doing that, and there was literally identity theft that hit the IRS because of that, and that's where they started doing the PINs. And then Social Security was the other one that got hit pretty hard with that same concept. So if you've got government websites that you are, you actually do business with, either IRS, Social Security, or even like your local state, just make sure you register with them and make sure you're managing that so someone else doesn't take ownership of it, pretending to be you.
Yeah. So scary, and it's so hard. From everything I've read, it's so hard to get your identity back once people take it over. It's crazy what it takes to get it back.
I don't know about you, Rachel. I think I've got more identity protection than I can ever imagine.
I do, well, particularly because of all the breaches that have happened. So then you get all this. I have all the things. It's kind of wonderful.
I've had them all. I have no idea if they even who's on first is the question. Like if something did happen, who pays first? And I think that's going to be the problem we're going to have next.
Exactly. Okay, so I do want to get to I think we're mindful of time, but one final favorite topic of mine that I have yet to embrace, and I'm sure you use these, Petco, are password managers. Now, I read everyone's on the LastPass. I saw there was a breach, but Jennifer, you guys actually had a blog post. I was so fascinated. You guys had a blog post on this exact topic as I was starting to think, should I embrace a password manager? What is it that you guys recommend?
We do recommend password managers. So we actually, we have a report that comes out every year on cybersecurity attitudes and behaviors. And we ask people, how do they manage their passwords? The most popular answer was writing them down in a notebook.
Yep.
Which to me sounds like a lot of work. Other popular answers were, storing them in on your phone, like in a notes app, in an email or a spreadsheet. But there are a number of people that do use password managers. They're becoming very popular. And there was the LastPass breach a few weeks ago, but it is a form that we highly recommend because it's so important to have those strong, unique passwords, long passwords that it's so hard to remember them. If you can't remember all of those, we have so many hundreds of accounts. It's too hard to manage writing them all in a notebook. Password managers are really the best way to manage that. So, and, in a lot of these breaches, it's very, very rare for someone's password to get leaked. It might be other data. So, and it's important also to, in case that happens, having multi-factor authentication set up on your account. So then if someone gets that password stored in a password manager, they still can't get into your account. So we recommend password managers. A lot of them also have a lot of other features that tell you if your password was in a breach, like telling you if you have repeat passwords. There are just so many great security benefits of using a password manager that we highly recommend them.
Yeah. I'm sure you use one, right, Petco?
Oh, absolutely. I've been using it for years. I actually got my whole family on it, the wife, the mother, and I trained my mother, to have a unique password for every single website.
Yeah.
So it's taken probably over a decade. But the great thing is now she can go to the website, click, it logs in for her. She doesn't have to think about it. So it's something I think that we underestimate, using a long password. Because the flipper is, if you have the same password for every single website, it just takes one breach. So it's all, password managers are really all about reducing your attack surface. So different usernames, different passwords. I've done it all, I think, at this point to make it simple for myself to manage. But I'm a big fan of password managers. I mean, I know the browsers have plenty built into them as well. But I use third parties because I can use it on my phone, my iPad, and even in various computers without having to worry about it. But
I think it's especially great for families too, because you can securely send passwords to other people in your family instead of sending them a text with what's the Netflix password. You can send them a secure encrypted message.
I'm share Netflix.
Not anymore for maybe the next few days.
But I think to your point, like the password managers, aren't just for passwords. I think people underestimate that they're doing more than that now. I mean, they're doing dark web monitoring to say, is this been breached? Should you be aware of it? Hey, this password, we don't know what the password is, but the hash of this looks really similar to this other thing. We think you should change it. Like it tells you which ones have been breached. And that is huge. That I think when you've got that preventative mechanism, say, this password has been reused. Let's go ahead and change them on these websites for you. Some will actually help you. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because sometimes you're on websites and they're kind of sketch and, but, like you want to watch a movie maybe that's not available anywhere else. And so you log in.
Rachel, is this part of your apps that you constantly download? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So I have a friend, he sends me, because he knows I love international movies and they're not always easy to find. And there's this one called like MovieBerry. And it's hilarious. You can pay like 7 cents for like an iPhone recorded movie, which is completely illegal, by the way. I acknowledge that. I don't watch them, but it's just funny that there's all these things out there. And so he's always sending me these sketch apps like, oh, hey, you can watch, your favorite Korean thrillers on this one. And like, I don't know. So it'd be nice to kind of, have a little backup for
Rachel,
things.
do you have Netflix?
I use my mom's password. I use my mom's.
Do we need to delete that? Just kidding.
It's been like 15 years too. I'm not ashamed. I'm gonna ask her to upgrade her subscription so I can keep doing that. So.
Same household, right, Rachel?
Yeah. Wink, wink. It sure is. Just different IP addresses, but the same house. Yeah. I can't believe I'm in cyber some days. So to wrap up though, Jennifer, I do love to ask people though, how did you get into this world? Like I love cyber. I was so excited to find this industry, years ago. And I want more and more people to come to it because they don't realize that you could be a psychologist and come into security and bring, such a great perspective. But how did you kind of find your way here?
So I've been in the world of cybersecurity for a little over 5 years, actually since I started at the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and it's definitely not where I expected to end up. So my background was in marketing, events, and nonprofit work. And the combination of those three, I was able to apply to cybersecurity to my surprise, and apply to cybersecurity education. I mean, actually, a lot of the way we talk about cybersecurity in our articles is kind of marketing cybersecurity, trying to get people's attention. And I've, become in that time very passionate about the human element of cybersecurity, talking to people and employees and using that, marketing knowledge to get the messaging to resonate, which has been really exciting. But yeah, it's something we talk about a lot when we talk about cybersecurity careers, is that you don't have to just be super technical, good at science or coding. There are so many different jobs that require different skill sets, hard skills and soft skills. You could be, we have a program right now for college students to teach them about cybersecurity careers, and it's open to all majors because really you can be in, business, communications, psychology, legal studies. There is a role for you to play in cybersecurity. There is a career for you.
Too. I mean, at some point, because, particularly when you look at business, right? I mean, cybersecurity is inherent in any kind of business operation plan today. And it permeates literally every aspect of our personal and professional lives. And so I wonder at some point, does it just become integrated into everything we do and we don't actually have cyber careers? It just becomes a skill that everybody has at some point in time. Maybe that's in the next 10 years or something like that. But I think that would be wonderful. And it's the education, Jennifer, the great work that you guys are doing, to help people realize it's not this scary esoteric thing. It's actually something that everyone can contribute to. And the more we all learn, kind of the smarter we can be. Some of us later than others, but yeah.
Yeah, and we compare it also to talking about the habits we take on in terms of physical security. Like there was a time where people had to get used to, clicking their seatbelt. And we want cybersecurity behaviors to become as easy as that. People don't even think about that anymore. It's, click it or ticket. You always hear that messaging. People just do it now. And we want it to be the same way with, you go online and you make sure your browser's up to date, or you set up multi-factor authentication when you create a new account. I think these are just new ideas that as the general public, we have to get used to, and we have to get, bring them into our daily habits.
We'll get there. I think we're going to get there, Petco.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Definitely. Yeah. Jennifer, thank you for helping educate everyone on this, and actually bring the human side of cyber to it and simplifying this, because we definitely have a pipeline issue in cybersecurity. We don't have enough people. We need, folks starting earlier to, help them get up to speed and understand. And honestly, it takes a nation. It's not just one vertical like cyber. So
it
thank
really
you.
Is. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the great work you guys do.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to October this year, another great National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I love it. We participated in those in the past, and they've been really great, and especially the Twitter conversations, the real-time Twitter conversations. Love those. So thanks again, Jennifer, for joining us this week. This has been a lot of fun. This is all my favorite topics.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
And to all of our listeners, Petco, you know what I love to say. We're going to smash the subscription button so you get a fresh episode in your email inbox every single week. So everyone, thanks for joining us this week. Until next time, stay secure. Thanks for joining us for the To The Point Cybersecurity Podcast, brought to you by ForcePoint. For more information and show notes from today's episode, please visit forcepoint.com/gov-podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, or Stitcher.